Hi, this is Brian from The Sleeping Elephant. I'm going to review Man Interrupted: Why Young Men Are Struggling and What We Can Do About It by Philip Zimbardo and Nikita Colulombe. The title itself is self explanatory. Young males are exposed to a new environment where there's constant stimulation, as in arousal, and Philip Zimbardo explains this as arousal addiction. And with the information and technological revolution, there's more screen time with people. There's more smartphones, more computers, higher speed access to data. Video games are capturing young children's attention more, leading into their teens where most of the young males are exposed to porn at a young age. And with porn comes learning about sexuality through a screen and not in real life. These are his first exposures into sexuality. And for people older than 30 years old, they lived in a more slower time, not with the high speed internet data connections that are available now. I mean, guys had Playboys, Hustlers, VHS tapes, or even if you downloaded adult content from the internet, it was by a 56K modem or DSL, which was much slower than the networks you have now. And with these new technologies come an environment of social isolation for young males. And there's less playtime and social interactions with actual real people. They're not going outside and playing. They're not spending time out in the outdoors in the national forest. And all you have to do now is really imagine with the new virtual reality headsets that are coming out. With video games, you're not even going to have to leave your home, really. You just play video games all day. VR sounds innovating and interesting, but if you think about porn as well, and the new sex robots, one of them, the book he mentions, The Sinful Robot, which is probably just going to be one of the many virtual reality programs, equipment that are going to come with the Oculus Rift. Nikita and Philip also wrote another book called The Demise of Guys that came out a few years ago. And Philip Zimbardo is a social psychologist in which you can check out his other video on TED Talks where he talks about the Lucifer effect and abuse. Philip is in his 80s, so he has a ton of wisdom on life in general. And I think he wrote this book to help out the younger generation, but to see, he's really seeing what's going on, almost like a train wreck happening right now, where you have young guys being tuned out with all this technology, and then you have the adult males not marrying, and there's a group of men called the men going their own way. That's the MGTOW. And they're not leading, they're opting out from society. They're doing that on a conscious level, whereas these young males that are growing up, this is an unconscious type of influence that is occurring with them. All this going on, and then you have the rise of women with feminist movement going through four waves, going on for about 60, 70 years, and there's a big clash going on with these ideas. This isn't just home to the West. They also have a phenomenon in Japan called the Herbivores, which means the grass eaters, and that is Soshuku Danshi. And they're experiencing a population decline where males aren't marrying, they're not having sex, the women aren't even interested in having sex, and there's statistics to back this up. And they have a more extreme version of the herbivore. It's called the Hikikomori, and they are shut-ins, where this is probably the biggest fear that I think Philip has, is that you don't want to see guys ultra isolate themselves. They may not want to be around certain people or people that annoy them or bad situations. But these hikikomori is young people who, not even young people, they are pretty much locking themselves in their room and becoming a super hermit. Here's a checklist of issues and challenges that men have to face today. There's a ton of research in this book. He cites a ton of books and a ton of research reports, and half the book is citation, so it's only about a 250-page book. This is my top takeaway from this book, is this Maslow's Hierarchy Needs pyramid. He makes a new version called the Hack Maslow's. I will post a link down below to the article, where it's, of course, the basics, the physiological, the safety, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. And if you look at the top three, he cuts it in half to give the internet, being a part of your reality and a part of the upper pyramid. And nowadays, you don't really have to worry about food. The new Western civilization, its safety and physiological are mostly kept in check. I know there is, certain situations that hamper that. And this hacked Maslow affects both men and women, and of course they affect differently. For the women, of course, it's for like Instagram or validation and likes that you see on the internet, especially with Snapchat. You always see the girls with the doggy filter, or the high angle selfie. And the internet, of course, I think we all know this, it creates a sexualized environment. And for males, with the internet, you can see that people are getting their self esteem from video games and then confirmation through porn. And with video games, it's creating I didn't really know this, that he put in the book. It's called the Proteus Effect. And it's where your self esteem is tied into your internet persona. For instance, if you are super good at Call of Duty and you're ranked super high, you own all the medals, you completely dominate people, you know the game's in and outs, you are a superstar in the game. This can create a superior complex, where in actuality it's a inferiority complex. This is due to the inflated ego of a virtual world versus the reality. And this causes a great delusion. In the book, they talk about this thing called the great disappointment. Say when you step out in the real world is not what it seems. All these entitlements and all this high self-esteem. And with porn, with it being a instant impulse and with this being a part of the arousal addiction, I mean, you could trick your mind into you're actually having sex, but you're having a sex with harems of women, when in reality you're not having sex with anyone but yourself. And this is going to become a new concoction into these next few years with virtual reality. Going to take a chunk of people's lives, I believe. And there's going to be a culture war going on with what's more valuable, the internet or real life substance. This is the most important graph that he has in the book. This next part I want to talk about is the rise of women, and he has a chapter on that, where feminism has, really gone, I think, too far. Many females are searching for partners to, settle down and start a family. Past their prime, I would put the prime for a female at 21 years old, where she looks her most beautiful and she's the most fertile. Females nowadays, it depends on where you live. California has a more liberal outlook, so you have females looking for guys to marry at their late 20s. They're looking around and not seeing guys around looking at them, or they have such high expectations that not many men could fit that build. This is creating a Coleridge effect for males, which you can see in my GADSAD video, the consumer instinct, as well as, high status males or any guy with game. They would say a little bit of pickup arts will meet the girls. Females have more access to anything nowadays. They have the glass ceiling, which has kind of come down. They have more leadership roles. Philip documents the wage gap for 70 cents for the dollar for women as a myth. And women's rights has gone into a new era where there's a book called Chauvinist Pigs, I think it's called. I read the book. It's where it's becoming women's rights coming to learning strip dance classes. Or they're trying to ban words like banning bossy, and females are, expected, they want it all, and, they can't have it all. No one can have it all. You see queen bee behavior, a disdain for the beta male, even if he's, a decent guy, you could still get lashed out on a hysterical female. And you have males kind of going on with this type of strong, ultra brazen female. I live next to the Bay Area, they have the San Francisco, so they call them the Lumbersexuals, where they are guys who have the beard, where he puts it as they're guys that can't even change a tire on a car. And this kind of comes from, especially this part in the Bay Area, where they had the Fear the Beard with one of the Brian Wilson on San Francisco Giants, and they all have this beard, and it's pseudo-masculinity. They can't go outside. They don't go out into the outdoor, where it's great for the forest, which paradoxically don't get visited by many young people. That's how Philip Zimbardo puts it. Here's another one. Young people in their late teens are now least likely age group to go to the national forest or wilderness, accounting for just 3% of the total visits in recent years. I mean, I see this firsthand with the Lumbersexuals when I go to the rock climbing gyms out in San Francisco. They have a few. I just use it to, just to train, but I actually go out into the wild and go rock climbing. I spend a ton of time out there in the West. But they have their shirt off, they have their, everything shaved, and then they have their beard. And it's amazing for me to see. This Lumbersexual shit is, it's fucking comical to me. I don't know the statistics offhand, but I do know there are more females graduating for universities. That's an issue, that we have to look at, is that you have females graduating. Who's going to take care of the kids? Or even so, who's going to have the kids? And it's obvious that college is becoming a bubble. And with the long tail, and with books and YouTube being virtually free and low price, I like this era that's coming through, where you don't have to go to school. You just learn everything on your own and you work and you can learn from other people. And of course, with the feminist movement, it's, creating a equality, egalitarian, where everything has to be equal. And there are tons of things where men are not being, treated fairly in terms of scholarships, in terms of homelessness or jobs or child support payments. How there are statistics that always veer toward the woman or toward the man. When you want this equality, it's not natural. And we're stuck in that position right now. It's like the rise of women and the falling of Burning Man. Philip wrote the book with, in certain sections, part 1 being symptoms, part 2 being the causes, and part 3 being the solutions. And these solutions are very vague. I don't agree with all the things that he stands for. He is a psychologist and he is an older guy. Although there is a ton of wisdom from this guy, there are going to be empty gaps and you can't always have what you want. However, I applaud the effort in him seeing this as a big issue. He documents it as how families can help, how women can help, how kids can help. You don't want young men to go down a path where they're becoming suicidal, not engaged into culture. You have to care. Women cannot live without men, and men are not supposed to live without women. In its pure form, I think it's really masculinity and femininity. And right now it's out of whack. So here are some solutions. Teaching resiliency and responsibility to young boys, getting rid of junk food at campuses and schools. I like this one. It's create a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, where you're not really applauded for entitlements or having things for free or easy. Tackling sex as an issue, teaching sex correctly, that is a tough issue to venture into. Especially males, you could harness your sexual energy. He doesn't put it as sexual transmutation, and that's from Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's a really good book. Instead of using porn constantly, you could use that energy to create or use it for work. Avoid princesses and don't call women sluts. You don't want to treat women like young girls like princesses. You could see them in I call it the Disney princess syndrome, where you don't want females to have this fantasy. You can't have it all. The last one I mentioned is being a mentor. And guys in general, they have to learn from guys. Women can learn from women. You can learn from really anyone. But in terms of masculinity and having fathers around, I think that's going to be the big issue with the single parent household, where there's a lot of unmarried women with single kids. That being a mentor is going to be a tough issue coming in the days, where you have the MGTOW going their own way, the men going their own way, which is pretty much the virtue of selfishness. Some of them waste their time doing bullshit. However, being a mentor, as a coach, as in school, and you don't really see many males teachers in elementary schools, and I think that's a big issue, where we need more males to be around males. They're going to learn from men. I do think they're the biggest losers into this battle of ideas, where the young males being born right now to maybe 10 years old, and women that are 17 years old to maybe 31 years old right now. To close it off, I am going to do a part 2 on this. I might repeat what I've said in this video. I want to do another one because there are a few other topics I want to talk about, and some I want to talk about a little more deeply. And you can check out his other book, Demise of Guys, as well as make sure you check out Philip Zimbardo's TED Talks, check out his website, subscribe to his Twitter. Another book you should check out that I will do a review of is Nicholas Carr Shallows. And that deals with technology and how it's affecting our depth of thought, our attention span, how attention deficit disorder is really being overprescribed. It's really, kids are being zombied out. They're becoming entertainment zombies, I call them. And you have more, I would say in Europe, you have more of a socialist zombie, where they're taught socialism and egalitarianism. And here you have the arousal addiction. And of course, check out this book. It's a pretty good book. This book was an upgrade of another book that he did not follow through with. So this is a much better polished version, and it doesn't have a lot of other roads you could take that he lists in the book.